The water here.
Glass in the water?
Capron,
Yeah.
Here.
Hey, yo, I'm here.
Greckin,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Waters.
Here.
Make a motion, we go in closed session of city council, discuss purchase of, or sale of particular real estate where premature disclosure could be likely to, or reasonably expected to increase the price the city would receive for that property.
Second.
Is this one I need to stay out on?
No.
Greckin,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Return to open session. Second.
I recognize his phone number. He called me,
Aye.
what time to
Here.
meet? He called me a little later, but I called him back.
Greckin,
Aye.
Here.
No,
Moore,
Aye.
Aye.
Scott,
I move
Waters.
we, oh. I move we adjourn the closed session.
Second.
Greckin,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters. Capron.
Aye.
Got a Boy Scout here today? What troop?
Slowly it rises.
What troop? All right, we're glad to have you.
Okay, 3 minutes early still.
Greckin,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Waters. Capron.
Here.
Could we stand for a moment of silent prayer? And as we do that, I would remind you that we should try to remember the family of Robert Ray, the former governor of the state of Iowa, in my opinion, one of the last people that understood people before politics. And if we remember, I think it would be appropriate to remember his family today. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go to boards and commissions. Planning and Zoning Commission, Carrie Flandon? Flaydan, come on up. Come on up and tell us why you want to sit on that committee.
One of these on, or can I just talk?
You just talk.
Well, it's very simple. Finally got the last kid out of the house. And I've got time to do stuff more community-oriented than scouts and church stuff and things like that. I'd like to be a little more service to the community.
And I don't have your full resume, and I don't have time to look it up. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm just a farm kid trying to make it in the big city.
Okay.
I've spent most of my life in lending. I've been a loan officer. I've been a bank examiner. Done the collection side of things, sales, marketing, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
My wife is from here in Sioux City. I've been here 14 years when we moved back. I buy houses, I fix them up. Some I sell, some I keep as rentals. And that's what I do.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
Great. Questions?
Not here, no.
Appreciate you applying.
Yes,
Thank you. Appreciate it. And Transit, Joan Brune? Use that mic. Matt, where are you at? Matt, can you get that mic down for Joan? Come on over this side, Joan.
My name is Joan Bruin, and I'd like to be a part of the Transit Advisory Board again. And I do ride the city bus and enjoy it, and I certainly know that a lot of people can get to their jobs or get to doctor appointments because of it.
Very good. How long have you been on? Is this your
I
second
think
term?
6 years.
6
Yep,
years?
2
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah.
So that will require a waiver by council?
Has it been the full 6 for her, though?
I'm looking. Let's see. Yep, Joan, you're on your second, so that would be a full 6 years.
Okay. That-
So it would require a waive.
It just requires a waiver, and you've done a great job. I
Yep.
don't know that anybody's going to have a huge problem with that,
Yep.
so.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your service.
Thanks, Joan.
Appreciate you coming in. Okay, we'll go to the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 15C. Consider these items to pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is requested by a council member. You want to speak on an item, please come forward as I read it. State your name and address so that we can have that for the record. If you want to speak on an item not under the agenda, come up under citizens' concerns. Again, state your name and address for the record. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
3 is a resolution authorizing Parks and Rec to accept a donation from the Siouxland Trails Foundation for the Big Sioux River Trail Phase 1 project. Paula Getz will present the check. Come on up, all you guys, and stand up and.
Mayor and Council, Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. We've had a great partnership with the Siouxland Trails Foundation, specifically with this Big Sioux Phase 1 project. It may not have been possible without their contribution towards this project, so we're very appreciative of that, and we're very looking forward to continuing our partnership with them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bob DeSchmidt of the Siouxland Trails Foundation.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob DeSmith, the past president of Siouxland Trails Foundation. Our president's out of town. And I'd like to give you just a quick background. Back around 1980, when the city was getting Chris Larson Park from a gravel road to a paved road and making it into the lovely space that it is today, There were a small group of people here in Sioux City that worked on getting a recreational trail against some very vocal objection from some city council members at the time. And part of that.
Not all of us, Bob.
I was gonna say, was that Bob? Come on, you guys all
I wasn't the guy that said you should.
None of you, but.
I just said you should put gravel around the Anderson Dance Pavilion because nobody'd use it either. So.
Right. Quality recreational trail, bike lane system is an expected amenity today, but it wasn't then. And one of those who led the charge on that was a businessman and volunteer named Brian Getz. Brian owned Perkins Office Solution. I'm sure some of you knew him. He was on, I think, the airport board and some other boards, very active in the community. Brian, we sadly lost him in 2010 to cancer. And lo and behold, about a year or two later, as I got the business settled up, we found out that he had left a gift to Siouxland Trails Foundation for a new trail in Sioux City, Iowa. And when we started Siouxland Trails Foundation, again, Brian, while he wasn't a board member, was one of the active people, one of the financial supporters, certainly one of the very strong verbal supporters, and worked really hard to get improved, make our city better for pedestrians and cyclists. And so we want to honor Brian today. And we've been working with Matt and the Parks and Rec Department to find a trail that would qualify as a, quote, new trail in Sioux City, Iowa, that we felt had real impact for users and where we could leverage the money. And we have settled on the Big Sioux Trail, closing the gap between the Aquatic Center and Florence Avenue. You just approved the construction contract for that last week. And so we're going to be very happy to present a check for the exact amount of Brian's estate of $153,000 and change, a little over half of the construction cost of that trail. And like I say, I would like to have Brian's sister Paula come up to make the actual presentation and have the members of our board and those who have been supporting the Trails Foundation come up also.
Sounds like we need to name the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Brian would be so happy about this.
It's a great honor for him.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It sounds like your Parks Board could look into naming a segment of the trail someday. I wouldn't want to tell you what that name should be.
We've been working with Bob, and we're looking at doing a memorial bench right at the start of the trail. But we could look at naming too. We can discuss that with Bob.
You bet.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob.
Thank you. Appreciate all you guys do. 4 is the reading of the city council minutes of July 2nd, 2018. 5 is the motion acknowledging the Board of Adjustment actions of July 2nd, 2000. I'm sorry. Motion acknowledging the Board of Adjustment actions of June 28th. 6 is a resolution approving a grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation's Bill Grant Program for the 18th Street Viaduct project. Did anybody notify Corey of this on today?
At our public meeting on the 14th, it was announced that we would be bringing it forward to council on this date, so.
Because we announced that we would inform when it was coming up, right?
When he was here, he asked that he be informed.
Yeah.
And did we do that?
I don't think we sent any additional information than what we gave out at that meeting that.
Well, I have lots of problems with this. Number one, the railroads, God knows I'm not their friend very often, and today's one of those days because the amount that they're contributing to this to close intersections that disrupt our community is peanuts.
We did ask for them to contribute more, and they came back that they were gonna stay at the 2 million mark.
But they're the first ones to sit and complain about the city not doing things to make their jobs easy. Close 10th Street for one industry, and I asked the question last week, what are we getting from that industry? Because we don't close streets around here. We don't close streets around here for just anybody unless there's some sort of economic benefit, in my opinion, for the community. I don't understand, and so why, you know, what commitment are we getting out of Cargill? They spent about 150 at minimum, I think, in Fort Dodge in the last couple of years.
They've committed $650,000 to the project.
I'm not worried about that. They're spending, the head of the DED, we had lunch with her last week, $400 million in the state of Iowa on capital and projects. We're making their plant much more efficient as a result of this today. And what are we getting? We have a right to ask them to invest in our community, not just for the road. We have a right to ask them to do projects in the community that they'll have additional land and be able to do that with today. We have, you know, we're getting 2 intersections closed. It's going to inconvenience me and 80% of the rest of the citizens in this community. Where had we 25, 30, 40 years, as I've said a countless number of times, pursued Hoove and Drive, even if you made it a Super 2 with turning lanes, it's graded for 4, would solve a lot more problems than this $15 million viaduct's gonna solve, but yet I'm supposed to vote for this at an inconvenience of businesses that we don't even take the time, that guy stood at that mic and we said, we would not have this on unless somebody from your department called him. I remember that specifically. He asked, will I be notified? And the answer was, yes, you will. And now we're up against a deadline. This has to go out today, right?
The application's due July 18th.
Well, you don't have a lot of time.
We can bring it back next week.
I guess I just wanted to comment on we have had discussions with Cargill. They have not committed formally to anything. We don't have an agreement. They have indicated to us over the last few years that they would look at an expansion of their local plan and increase the amount of shipping that they think they'd be able to increase the amount of shipping that they would do to other parts of the country. So you're correct, Mayor. We don't have a commitment from them in terms of what they would do with the plant. But, you know, it's been some uncertainty over the status of this project for a few years since we haven't gotten all the full funding. So I believe they will make some improvements to their plan. I can't tell you specifically what.
They're going to make improvements no matter what. They're spending $400 million in Iowa. Debbie told us that. They spent at least $150 million in Fort Dodge. Why don't they look at Sioux City? We've been good to them over the years.
I think they have made significant improvements to the plant over the years. They have been somewhat hamstrung by the lack of land at that site. So I think this.
Marty, we have land all over this community. When they went to Fort Dodge, they built new facilities. I'm not talking expansion that necessarily just of this facility. They could make me happy by doing something in Bridgeport or down by Sabre. They could make me real happy. I don't know about the rest of the council, but a major expansion down there would be good.
Yeah.
We have a nice site down there with rail, and we're just looking for somebody to put a plant on, right?
That's correct.
Well, and I would just say my piece. I spoke with Mr. Carney at length, but we spoke more about the project today. And I have concerns. I understand there are risks with not submitting this proposal. I mean, I know that we've looked at the plans, receiving the grants and everything for the plans, as well as the availability to get future build grants. I understand that. But as I voiced to Mr. Carney, I am hesitant because I do not see the immediate need there where we could be spending $4 to $5 million on other infrastructure projects that I view are much more needed in the community. And so that's where I'm really struggling. I'm fine if we want to delay or defer this until next week if that's what's needed, if we feel it's needed for that gentleman to be able to voice his views, but I was prepared to pull this for a separate vote as it was. So if anyone would.
Well, I think I'll move to defer because I think it's the right thing to do. I think we owe that to people when we say we'll notify them.
Yep, I agree. I just sent
I'll
Rick a
second.
note to see if,
Deferral to the July 16th.
yes, a week from
You
today.
guys need to all state your name for the,
Engineer.
Marty Doherty, Economic Development.
thank you.
I'll second.
Moore,
Aye.
Scott, Waters,
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Greckin.
Aye.
7's a resolution accepting lease from IDOT for the parking lot and drive area on Chris Larson Park Road. 8 are actions relating to River Cade Street closures. A is a resolution temporarily closing Larson Park Road on July 20th for the River Cade 55th birthday party. B is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area on July 18th for the River Cade Parade and the Ice Cream Social. C is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area on July
Rick's on the
17th for the
elevator.
River Cade Hot Dog Eating Contest. 9 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving a change order number 1 to the contract of R.H. Mullen for the Long Lines Softener Replacement Project. I need to abstain on that item.
Excuse, Bob? Our fellow's here. Corey's here. Do we want to go back?
I don't care, we've already deferred it, but as long as he's here, that's fine.
Well, they're going out to talk, I think, so.
Go ahead, Rick, if you want to speak on it. We've deferred it, but
I'm fine, I could either defer it, or I didn't come very prepared, obviously I wasn't notified.
That's why we deferred it.
Hey,
That's fine.
We deferred it a week. What, you want to wait till you can be better prepared?
Yeah, I'd like that.
okay,
Okay.
it'll be
Okay.
back Monday.
Sorry
Okay.
you were not notified.
Yeah, no, it isn't you guys' fault.
Well,
I appreciate the defer.
I want you to be prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
9A,
Thanks, Rick.
You had me as abstained, right? B is a resolution approving a contract to Knife River Midwest for the annual resurfacing project. C is a resolution approving a contract to Knife River Midwest for the annual crack sealing project. 10 are actions authorizing the issuances of checks. A is a resolution refunding a donation to the Howard Logan family for the Siouxland Expo Center. B is a resolution authorizing final payment to Steve Harris Construction for the 225th Street and Port Neal Road project. C is a resolution authorizing final payment to Paragon Restoration for the Martin Luther King parking ramp repair project. 11 are appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. A is a motion reappointing Julie Behrens to the Human Rights Commission for a 3-year term. B is a motion reappointing Charles Bill McKinney to the Library Board of Trustees for a 3-year term. 12 approved total checks issued for the reporting period of June 2018 in the amount of $11,271,545.61. 13 are applications for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, vapor permits. See the list, come forward if you have any questions. 14 applications for beer liquor license. See the list, come forward if you have any questions. 15, you see the minutes. See the list, come forward if you have any questions. Anyone to be heard on any of those items? Passes 5-0. 16 are hearing resolution approving plans and specs for the council chambers audiovisual replacement project. I'll move that.
Second.
I did have a question about that. It's not necessarily as specific, but I think I brought up this issue before. I'm looking forward to the improvements. I think they're necessary. I understand that. The one thing that I really would hope that we can address, and whether that's, we've talked, I mean, I've talked to Mr. Padmore and others, about the placement of the podium or the acoustics of the area here in general. I understand the upgrades needed for the audio and the visual and the microphone system, et cetera, here. But I've noticed, it happened last week and it's happened with Mr. Salem when he's come, that out there they don't hear us for some reason. Is there anything we can do to address that, or have we thought creatively about that? That's just what worries me.
There is a loop there, and if they pull that back, it does work for Dick. Now, I think you have to have a special attachment to your hearing aid.
Right.
That Dick has, that gentleman I know doesn't have.
The one that was here.
Yeah, but and I don't mean this to be, I know him very well. He would have a hard time no matter what. He just doesn't hear very well. And so Dick can hear because we put that loop in the carpet or whatever, wherever you put it.
2 years ago.
And and he's got something in his hearing aid that helps, because he can hear, if you pull that back.
So do we need to pull that back or start having that back?
Well, it normally is back.
We push it, before the meeting, I come in and I push it back to where it's like level.
And just an FYI, the system was broke a few weeks ago, and it was repaired. So he probably couldn't hear then, but we're gonna have, on the new podium, it's gonna be a wireless mic, so we won't have that tripping hazard, so we can bring the podium back.
Okay.
So we are addressing those issues.
Good.
Great, I was just thinking about it when I was reading through some of the other stuff. So thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Dan.
Passes 5-0. 17 is a hearing and resolution accepting the proposal of GKD for the land in the combined Floyd River urban renewal area and authorizing the sale of property at 3240 and a half Floyd Boulevard. I'll move that.
Second.
Passes 5-0. 18 is resolution authorizing city attorney to proceed under the power of eminent domain to condemn property in connection with the Bridgeport West Improvement Project Phase 5. A motion for reconsideration was made July 2nd, 2018.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Now,
And this is
I'm not
where
voting, but you need to clarify, because
Sure.
what a yes vote means, because I'm not sure that I know.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, I was a little confused as well.
All right, when this originally came to the council, it was approved, I believe, 4-0. The mayor abstained on the item, which meant that we had authority to proceed forward with the condemnation action out in Bridgeport. The motion for reconsideration revived the item as it was originally presented. So the vote today, a yes would be in favor of proceeding with eminent domain. A no vote would mean the action item would fail. There are a couple different options. The item can be voted down to take back the authority to proceed forward. The other option would be to uphold the action and give direction to our office to wait with filing the eminent domain paperwork until a later date. Those are the two options that the council could consider today.
And what I remember from conversation is that we said that we could push it to November or September, at least later.
The action would have to be completed by January. That's my understanding. I'm talking with Dave Kearney. I'm not sure if he's still here. There's RISE grant funding associated with this project, and we do have deadlines that we would need to meet. In order to proceed with condemnation from start to finish, we need at least a 4-month period of time to make sure that we can complete the process. If it results in that, we can negotiate and hopefully settle the item without having to proceed forward in front of the Compensation Commission for an ultimate determination on the value.
So we could vote it down and go through those negotiating steps, and then if necessary, come to us before, so we can make that decision with enough time for the RISE grant.
Sure. We would want to commence proceedings no later than September in order to meet that January deadline.
And I did talk to Dan this afternoon, or Dave this afternoon as well, and Dave told me the same thing. He said in order to stay on timeline, we would have to complete this process with, well, he said it takes 4 to 6 months to complete this process. So we really need to start now, otherwise the project gets delayed maybe as long as a year.
So it's a vote yes if we want to keep it on track.
Yeah, but as I've said before, just as a matter of principle, I'm going to vote against it. I think the timing is not right, and I think we do have time. It's not a residential, it's not a homestead property, so it's going to be, isn't it, taking the action of the Condemnation Commission to come up with the dollar amount? And that's what you pay in. Once you pay it in, you've got possession of the property.
Well, my understanding is, Dan, in talking with staff, was that Mr. Lassard was fine with moving forward with it. And then have discussion.
I've been told that too.
But
Pete, the problem I have is if I'm not, I'd probably tell you whatever you want to hear, just so we don't have to talk about it,
Okay,
is my opinion.
Sure.
So I may be going on a limb. I just, as a matter of principle, I just don't feel right about it. I really don't.
Well,
And if there's
let me just say
opportunity
this,
to
and
negotiate.
Bob and I are very good friends. I'm not sure what I would tell you to do, because I know the last time I talked to him, the doctor told him 6 weeks after the surgery that he shouldn't do really anything, so you're not gonna probably, unless things have changed since I talked to him, and I haven't really called him because I don't want to call him when he's not supposed to be talking about, I mean, he's supposed to be sitting at home resting, so I'm not sure that you aren't gonna be back here by the time he could actually talk to anybody, is what would concern me.
Well, the timing of that would make it a necessity right now, Mayor, that
I got you, I understand. I just wanted to explain, though, that I know he's out of commission, I know that.
can we do, if I understood Nicole correctly, can we pass it, but give instructions to city legal to not move forward until
A
a
negotiation
later
can't
date?
be
And
reached.
yes,
Yeah, I'd be fine with
Unless the
that.
negotiation can't be reached.
yes, I would agree.
You could.
Because at least then, Dan, at least in my perspective, because I don't want to
At least
trouble
it's,
him with this either.
Right.
But if we pass it with those stipulations, then we can still wait. Staff would be given instruction to negotiate or work with him at a time when he is available. And if that said time he doesn't become available, like Bob's saying, then we would move forward with condemnation. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
The other option, as the city manager just talked to me about, would be to defer action on this item until a later date. If you wanted to defer it a month and then have us bring it back to revisit the issue, we could do it then too.
Would you still be able to, obviously you would still be able to negotiate then during that time?
what,
No,
like,
they've been
really,
negotiating.
there's no difference there, you know, if we vote yes, we're still gonna get everything that we just mentioned.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we just go ahead and do it that way?
Past practice, though, he's been reasonable to negotiate with. We've got a record of that.
Yeah, and I believe that's the case in this, you're right.
Yeah.
I think so.
The issue as far as the timeline for us is just being able to obtain a hearing date. And it depends on the time of the year as to how busy they are. If the DOT has other actions that are going on, we just need to be able to schedule with the compensation board when they're all available. That's the thing that slows us down sometimes, is it can take a couple months to get it. And I'm not saying that's going to change if we wait until September. We just never know for sure how long it's going to take to get a hearing date.
Is there a deadline to spend the RISE money or to have it completed?
Oh, yeah.
Well, here's Dave.
January, I think they said.
Because that's a significant amount of money.
We've accepted bids on this project, so the problem we could run into if we delay it long enough is we'll end up paying a contractor for downtime.
Right, you could pay downtime.
So how much time does that give us?
We need to have the property by probably January, February at the latest.
Oh, yeah. Which I think we're all in support of moving before that.
But I mean, you would have to, yeah, you'd have to be a hearing. The problem is if you wait till November and then she doesn't get a hearing date till March, now we're gonna run into problems. It might be too late by the time you decide on a hearing date of when you're gonna get that.
So what's downtime, just out of curiosity?
He'll provide.
How do you
it.
determine that? What's
Well,
is there a
he'll
formula
provide-
for that?
Well, he'll say, I had all these guys lined up to do the work and now I can't do the
Sure.
work, so now you're gonna pay for all my guys and my equipment while I'm waiting.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that.
No, I agree.
I guess I'm still unsure then of what the timeline is or what we need to be thinking about. I don't want us to sit and not do anything and cause us to pay for any of that downtime. I don't think that's fiscally responsible. But I also agree with Mr. Moore that I don't want to put any undue pressure on him at this time if that's not necessary.
So Dave, you mentioned that the bid has been accepted. So
We've accepted bids. I don't believe we've actually awarded at this point, but our bid's 1.7 million under the estimate, so I would assume we were gonna award it.
okay, so then there's no time limit? I mean, if we were late with the project and not completed
He's got-
on the timeline that you have now, we don't run into any trouble with the state and being reimbursed for?
I wouldn't believe so that we would lose
Okay.
our funding, but we would run into costs. If we get to the point where they're being delayed and they can't work, we'll
Yep.
incur costs.
Okay.
And the state, I'm sure, won't participate in those.
In that, yeah.
The condemnation would, once again, approve the condemnation. The vote no is to not approve the condemnation.
So if we vote no, it just moves ahead?
With negotiations.
If you vote yes, we still get to
Correct.
negotiate, but it
Right, and if
later.
we're unable to finalize anything, we'll be back to you the end of August for requesting additional permission to proceed forward with condemnation.
Okay, we won't start that until,
If,
okay.
if it's a no vote.
So,
If
yeah.
it's a no vote,
If
we'll
it's a
have
no
to
vote.
come
Yes
back.
is to maintain.
The same schedule we're on right now.
And then a no would just delay the condemnation if a negotiation or if an agreement cannot be reached. Right?
Yes.
No, it passes, well, I don't know. Anyways, 3-1 to 1. I don't know if that passes or.
It fails.
It fails. All right, moving on then, citizen concerns. Are there any citizens to be heard? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dave Raymond. I live at 2606 Shields Avenue. But what I'm here about is Bing's Court off of 41st Street. I believe the mayor is familiar with the area. My concern is the lights that were put in there. They're not normal street lights where you have the down head, the cobra head. They're big pillars or column lights with the globes. They are very bright. The reason I'm concerned about it is 2701 41st is now the corner of Bing's Court and 41st. It was my parents' property. My dad passed away in January. My intent is to purchase the property from the estate, so I'm going to be resident there. My dad always complained that he could read a book from the kitchen. He had to have blackout curtains in the bedroom window because of
It
those
made me
lights.
redress how I go to the kitchen sink at night, but I understand. I would agree with you.
So this is what the lights look like. They're not the cobra, they're the pillars.
What's the street again? What's the court?
It's right behind my house it's where Welty built that subdivision
Hey,
with Daryl. Yeah.
What's the name again, Bob, of the street?
It's named after.
Bing's Court,
yeah.
yes.
Named after Bing.
I should know it being Welty.
Bing's Court. This is the property I'm talking about. Each one of those red marks is one of those street lights, just like that one.
Okay.
You guys will see that.
Sure.
Didn't we have problems with that before?
Yeah, because it was like,
Yeah.
I'd go out in the kitchen and was like, I think they shut that one off for a while because nobody's up there.
Some of them are
They had
off.
too
Yeah,
many.
we turned about half of them off
Yeah,
because it
light
was,
poles,
without the
yeah.
homes up there, it was kind of bright. And that, the lighting that was done on this was done in accordance with the SUDAS standards, but state.
I don't know if you guys are all familiar with this, but this is off the city's website. Design guide for any developments in the city. This is dated 2010, that's the most current one on the website. The area we're talking about is either suburban or even rural zone, which is not supposed to have anything like that. Those lights are meant for downtown areas or city center or something like that, according to this. What I'd like to see is get at least the two on Bing's Court, or the whole cul-de-sac going up and then to both sides, north or to the east and west is Bing's Court, but I'd like to see the two on the north-south portion of it replaced with the cobra heads into the street. And if that's not possible, I get a shield behind the one that's closest to this house at 2701 41st so that it's not shining into the kitchen and the bedroom and the backyard.
Dave, could we replace them with the LED Cobras?
We can look into that, yeah.
They're not gonna do that. I mean, the developer's not gonna do that.
No, it would be on us to
It would
do
be
it.
on us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we have since stepped down the lighting thing because the unfortunate thing is Sioux had a foot candle in order to meet
But
their
he had to pay
standards.
for it. That was another
Absolutely.
problem. The city made him pay for it. Did he ever get
He didn't want
reimbursed?
to do that many lights. Now,
No,
he
he
chose
didn't.
that, he chose that.
Well, at the time, Rhonda, though, that was our adopted standard, was the Sioux standard. So we made them meet Sioux standards. It just unfortunately was way brighter than what we had anticipated.
But so did he,
No, he doesn't get a reimbursement on it, no.
which I think is
Turn
wrong.
this one off.
Yeah, we went out and turned some of them off.
I mean, he argued that with
Yeah,
the
he
city.
did. I remember.
And, I mean, he knew it was gonna be too many. And it cost him thousands of dollars.
I understand that we were meeting a standard that was adopted for us to meet. That's,
How long was it adopted? Because it didn't last long.
we've since changed it because of that, that's why.
This was put in 2015 or 16.
We went up there, didn't we?
And we just recently changed it
Oh, it's
back.
brighter and bright.
Oh, God.
This one would, I mean, you could stand in my kitchen at night.
I mean, it would be, right now, under our current
And I got
standard,
trees blocking.
each of the cul-de-sacs would have a light. There'd be a light at the intersection and a light at the 41st, so there'd be 4 lights out there.
Yeah,
But we can look at, if you can show me which ones you're
At
talking
least
about.
for now, that one probably could be shut down. You still got this one. You got basically half block, and that's all you'd have all over town.
Yeah, like I was just saying, the current standard would be 1 at the intersection of 41st Street, 1 at the intersection of Bing's Court, and 1 at each end of the cul-de-sac is what it should be.
But look into it, and get Dave.
No,
Give Dave your phone
the
number.
lighting standard, we use it, those are the same lights we've used in other places. And the Solways has decorative lights that are not Cobra heads. Years ago, the city wanted to allow other options other than the Cobra heads that we'd be fine with the Cobra heads, the city staff. We'd rather have one consistent light and stick with it, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
But that's because Mid-America gives 3 options and it's subdivider.
Well, but we could say we're only gonna do one.
I understand that, but now you give that guy that builds a subdivision the option of whatever Mid-America does, and there's 3 options. Get Dave your phone number and that, and see what you can work out with him,
Yeah.
okay?
It's, be that one, this is the house.
Okay.
That one's shining right in there.
Okay, and it probably is, is there one already out on the street here somewhere?
There's one right there.
Okay, that's the intersection one. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Most people don't
Thank
brag
you.
about moving into our neighborhood. Thanks for coming down and having the courage. So welcome to the neighborhood. Anyone else?
Mayor Scott, members of the council, thank you. And I come here as a citizen today of Siouxland. I reside at 600 Pioneer Place, South Sioux City, Nebraska, but I do all my shopping and spend all my money here. So that allows me to come across that river from time to time. Members of the council, I simply want to raise your attention to a small thing today. I read the Sioux City Journal last Tuesday, and I need to tell you I was very encouraged by that, about the fact that all of you last week elevated the discussion of homelessness, addiction, the need for detox, the need for us to address issues of mental illness in our native and non-native community. You need to know, when I read the article Tuesday, it made my heart soar like a hawk. And I'm very pleased with that. What I want to mention to you today is just very timely that I come over here. My daughter, who's not here, she explained to me exactly what she did. She's here in the city today from Oklahoma City, and she had some letters in front of her name, and I asked what that meant. And she works for the Indian Health Service. And she's a member of the Commission Corps of the Indian Health Service. And I said, what do those letters mean in front of your name? And she said, that stands for Lieutenant Commander. And I said, that's interesting. Somebody saluted you. And I share that with you for a reason. She came here on her way to Minneapolis, where they have a gathering of all the direct service tribes in the country going to gather in Minneapolis from the Indian Health Service. And she's on her way there, decided to visit her father, and I decided I would go with her. I did not get an invitation. That happened, so I determined that I would invite myself. I'm going to be there the rest of this week, and I'm going to, however I can, elevate the discussion about the need for us to continue to focus on Woodbury County, Iowa, and about the needs that we have in the native and non-native community to make ourselves well. And I simply wanted to come here and share with you that the discussion now has been elevated here. And after the June 1 meeting at the Ho Chunk Center, it's been elevated in the Indian Health Service, even throughout Indian country. And we have momentum. And you caused a lot of that momentum because of your meeting Tuesday. Momentum started when the Sioux City Journal came out with an op-ed about how we in our city are better than this, than to let these things continue. And I guess all I want to tell you today, Mayor, members of the council, is that when Frank does something, I have a character flaw. And that is, he does not go away, do not quit. I had resolved several years ago, along with others in our community, to make our native community well. And as you know, we did that at White Clay, Nebraska. It took us 20 years, but we made us well. I'm simply here to tell you to continue to elevate the discussion, and I'm going to do that. And in my meetings tomorrow and the rest of the week in Minneapolis, I'm going to invoke your name. And I might even pull out that newspaper article and that editorial. I'm going to tell the Indian Health Service that we are here. They have an obligation, and it is high time they live up to their obligation to the Native community. I will leave you with this. They unilaterally took away our halfway house in 2007, and I did some quick math, and I found out that there was very little reason that they took those dollars from our community. I computed them very recently as $2.4 million that could have gone in for treatment, detox in our community that's not here. They left the problem. That's why we have all come together collectively to address it. And I very simply want to say to all of you, continue the good work, continue to elevate that discussion, and I will do my part. We won't go away. And one day, we're going to cut a ribbon over here, and I want you to remember he said we were going to do that. Because I think sometimes when we say the simple truth and stay with it, we'll get the job done. So I just want to take those moments to tell you that. Thank you very much, all of you, for your work.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Anyone else? Pete?
No, I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Nope.
Oh my gosh, come on, Ron, you're supposed to
Oh
give me
boy,
time.
here we go. He's getting the list ready.
Oh, he's
I
good.
am, I tell you what.
Yeah.
Is the Cook Park splash pad ribbon cutting happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Right, so I wanted to announce that. If anyone wants to come out for the Cook
1:30.
Park, 1:30.
1:30.
You beat me to it, buddy. So at the
I thought
Cook
you were
Park.
asking the time.
Huh?
I thought you were asking for the time.
Oh, no, yep. So tomorrow, 1:30, Cook Park splash pad. Definitely be there. And then let's see. What else do we got? I'm sure we got stuff. There's a Sioux City Growth Organization general meeting on Wednesday over the lunch hour. So if you are a young professional, identify yourself as a young professional, or maybe employ young professionals, please consider sending them to the general meeting. Everyone's welcome. Over the lunch hour, it's at United Way of Siouxland. So that's 701 Steuben. And let's see. Oh yeah, there also is the 2018 Siouxland Bike and Bite. Starts down at the Farmers Market on Saturday. It's a great event. I didn't take these Hot Wheels out on the event last year. I might have to this year. Where you actually bike around. You start at the Farmers Market and bike to different restaurants throughout Siouxland and try some of their fare that they have. So I would encourage everyone to participate in that. I believe it's the Iowa State Extension that puts that on. The only other thing I would say is I hope everyone enjoyed their 4th of July and maybe, I don't know, went out to the Explorers game or Saturday in the park or enjoyed themselves in that capacity. I have been contacted by quite a few people that are pretty frustrated with the fireworks and the continual use of them outside of stations. About, I understand that the chief and his people are probably putting, his team are going to put together some figures for us of maybe how that went as far as the enforcement arm of that. And I look forward to that.
Isn't that what this was?
422. Did I miss it already?
422 complaints. It just came out this afternoon.
Oh, you're
Everybody-
kidding.
yeah, they left a copy
The last
here,
I seen
right
was
in front of
100.
you.
Come on up, chief, and tell us how great,
I was gonna say, I didn't get a chance to read it. So
how
I'm
great
sorry.
things were.
Was it just
I don't
here?
know.
I didn't get an email.
Oh, here it is. Well, it's on this.
Yeah, it's right on
It
top
came in
there.
an email, but that's okay. It came in real late, just
I'm sorry.
while we're at meetings.
Rex Mueller Police Department. What can I answer for you?
Well, just give this, I think that there's people in the public that want to know.
Sure.
I know I have a friend that is bothered by irresponsible people shooting off fireworks next to his apartment complex and that, and he wanted to know if we were truly trying to do enforcement, so this will save me an email because I know he watches the council meetings.
We will, and what we put together for you was to give you an idea of the gravity of the issue, how many calls for service we had. What we found from June 30th, and we just limited this to a window of a week, between June 30th and July 8th, we had 422 calls for service. And so that's the amount of people that called into the comm center reporting fireworks issues. Those could be anything from after hours to discharging in the street to just general noise issues that were reported. We did try to man a fireworks enforcement patrol, and I'll be very honest with you, part of what hampered our enforcement efforts was staffing issues. We've lost as many as 9 people recently due to military deployments and a recent rash of injuries. So our patrol division was working at minimum staffing or below during much of this time. And that might sound like an excuse, but it's an honest response because by and large, we are bound to take care of essential services. So essential services trumped a lot of the fireworks patrols. We were able to staff about half of those. And again, our citation issue is extremely low. We only issued 3 citations. However, I'll be honest, the nature of the ordinance makes it challenging to enforce. And there's a number of reasons. For one, it is very hard to enforce something where possession of such devices is legal. So it's okay for people to have them, but in a lot of these cases, we had people anonymously reporting them to us. They were sent to our comm center in order that they were received, and we tried to send people to those in the order that they were received. And I can tell you, during peak times, we had, much as a couple dozen to more calls for service waiting. So a lot of cases, the officers got there and it was no longer a problem. In some cases, you have entire neighborhoods who are banding together and doing something similar. So the nature of the ordinance itself, while I think it's very well written, was a bit of a challenge to enforce. I think that with better staffing next year and also a better hold of the issue, we should be able to do better next year. We could have done better, I'll be honest. I think we could have done better, but I can't not bring up the issues that we had with staffing. I think we all wanted to deal with this, but again, the essential services had to take precedence during this time period. So it was much of a balancing act as to try to respond, try to deal with them as best we could, and move on to the next one. And when there's 20, 30 calls on the screen related to just fireworks and you have a handful of patrolmen, it becomes difficult sometimes. But I do say I think this was the best approach, just in remembering years past, and we could run those numbers for you if you wanted. In years past, I think when it was completely illegal, we still had this issue. So the ordinance, whether it's legal, it's not legal, to some people doesn't make a difference, but I think we had a lot of folks who understood that, and on the 3rd and the 4th, discharged their fireworks properly. I think that gave them a good avenue. I think 2 days is pretty good. So this being the first year it was done that way, I think that was really well arrived at by this council, and I think it's a good way to proceed in the future.
Thanks for the report
I
and the
appreciate
update.
that, yeah.
No problem.
Because that's my concern as well. I mean, I know that it sounds like there were a lot of staffing issues and that can lead to fewer citations and the availability to send units out there. I just wanted to your last point, I think it's true is that, well, even if we would say, well, fine, they're not allowed at all, I think we're still going to deal with some issues, I think.
Absolutely.
Allowing some people to legally set them off is good, but hopefully in future years or different times, we're able to send more units or have more staff available to at least hopefully enforce that and curb some of that illegal usage.
The other side of it is too, if you get a call and you get out, I mean, they're going to take off and they're not going to
Well, and that's just, you brought up a
You
good
gotta
point.
hunt them down,
Yeah.
and so you almost have to catch them in the act, or else ask them, and then they have to admit to it, and then you're gonna give them a ticket. I don't know, that'd be hard too. So I think 3 citations were probably much more than I would have expected.
Well, and
to be
I think
honest.
we can do better, but again, I will say that the staffing caused issues. I think had we been kind of better prepared, but this is an experiment. I think we're all learning from going, to a shorter duration of time. I think the citizens are learning. I think public education is part of it. I think not everybody was aware when it was legal. Almost like the snowbound vehicles, I think that people are catching up to it. As we do this year by year, I think people get sharper about it. They understand it. We get better at enforcement, and it should make things easier as we go. But I think that your approach as far as the council goes was very good. I think 2 days is acceptable. It might not be for some people, but I think it's a positive compromise.
I think it's a happy medium.
Yeah.
If you can say it's a happy medium, people can do their fireworks, but they also know that there's a timeline
Say
here.
this, the people that called were a lot more civil this year than they were a year ago, so obviously you did do a little bit better job than what we did in the past. And I had the opportunity to call one time to whoever your command staff person was on fireworks, and then another time, and I would compliment you on, I'm not gonna call and say, get somebody out there, that's not my job. But, they explained that they're behind and they'll do the best they can do, and I thought they did a good job of explaining to me what was going on, and, listen, you have 82,000 people and you got 10% of them firing off fireworks when they shouldn't be. It's gonna be difficult to enforce, and it makes it almost impossible, and your police officers are involved in the military by nature. That you and firemen seem to be a group that responds to those type of activities and involvements. And right now, we're taxing the military around here, and your officers are taxed because of that. And I hope our citizens understand that some of what we're up against is not because you want the people to be where they're at, but it's a duty that they have to attend to right now. And unfortunately, we're going to be that way for a while in this country, because the Guard and the reserves are taking a lot of the military activity, and your members are members of those units. So I think the number of people that complain, and I understand people complain, and I get why. I mean, it is aggravating when their neighbors are firing them off like they were, but I think for where you were at, you guys did as good a job as we possibly could have asked you to do, so.
And I think the numbers probably don't tell the best story. I spoke to a lot of officers who responded, and a lot of it was warned and admonished, and they got voluntary compliance from folks. So there was a professional contact there.
Right.
They resolved the issue, a lot of cases, most cases without a citation. But looking at that call screen and being a patrol officer, it's a challenge when you have so much there. Where you're going to be off the streets for 20 minutes or more issuing a citation, or you can go from call to call and try to make an impact. So they had a tough balancing act, and I think they did the best that they could under the circumstances. So we'll continue to work on it, though. I think we've learned a few things this year, and we'll change our approach next year.
A couple of points that citizens made to me that I think made sense, but I don't shoot them off. I go to the Explorers game and watch their display, but they seem to think that some of the fireworks that are being discharged are much, much louder than they used to be. Because you mentioned over the years, we've always had discharge of fireworks, whether there's an ordinance or no ordinance, but some of them seem louder. Another one that I think maybe council is going to be charged with looking at in the next few months is whether we still continued to allow the discharge of fireworks for New Year's Eve. Several people have brought that point up and said, well, okay, you're going to have fireworks and picnics, and you're going to be with families and celebrate the independence of our country, as we should, but why New Year's Eve? And it's a little bit different. So we may be charged with taking a look at that. We might still vote that, I don't even know what the days are for that. I think it's 2 days, isn't it?
No.
The 30th and 31st.
Might be just
Yeah,
New Year's Eve from 11 to 1 in the
Whatever
morning.
it is, I think we're charged
Yeah,
with taking.
it's
2
just one
hours.
day, I'm sure of that.
Look at that again, so we may have to revisit that, because it's just a good idea to revisit it and have the discussion. You also hit on educational process, and it is an educational need to be complemented as well. I thought they did a good job getting the word out as far as when you could fire those off. So I thank you for all that you did do, and, you know, you're always going to have a criticism that you don't do enough. But,
Sure.
But under the circumstances, I think you did plenty, so thank you.
No problem.
The only other thing that I wanted to say, Chief, while I had you up here was, thank you, for your work as well as Captain Clay's and other members of your team, with the Sioux Street project and other issues to address homelessness. I think Frank Lemire was bringing up a lot of valid points and great things that we do have momentum in this community and want to address and want to work, in a collaborative approach, maybe how we can address the homelessness. And that need, and not without overburdening, especially the police force.
I appreciate that.
I did read your article you sent this morning. I understand that it's at the forefront of your mind. And so I just want to thank you and your team for the continued work.
Well, I appreciate that. We're interested in solutions, and I think examining how we've handled things in the past regarding homelessness, it hasn't worked. And we need a better, more appropriate, more humane approach to this problem. And I think that all the stakeholders that are coming together with the street project and with other projects get that. And I've said it many times, and I agree, law enforcement is not the solution to this issue. We need to find a better way, and that's what we're working towards.
And Frank, you should know, I mean, today's a perfect example. We weren't even having a discussion about it necessarily, and the chief was sent all of council an email of an article he was reading, trying to address it and seeing how we could apply it in Sioux City. So, I mean, I think it's always on a lot of our minds and what we can do.
Definitely.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's right.
I've got one thing I want to add to the Saturday in the Park thing. I want to thank all the volunteers out there for cleaning up Saturday in the Park. I went through, I was doing kind of a ride around yesterday, and there was not a spot that was dirty out there, and it was like at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So whoever the volunteers are, kudos. I was just, everybody was, there was even people out there cleaning up. They were already done. So I mean,
And not only the park, they go out
Right.
into the surrounding
Yes.
neighborhood and they clean up. It's just phenomenal.
I tell you what
these volunteers do for Saturday in the Park.
what a
Saturday in
great,
the Park is one
and
of the best
it
festivals.
is. And thanks to Dave Bernstein, I think he needs to really.
We had
Wow.
active meetings with Dave because we wanted to deal with safety and security issues for the public, and Dave was very receptive. They were very well organized. They had a lot of volunteers lined up. Obviously, we had an officer presence, but I think credit does go to that group. That's a tremendous undertaking. They did a great job.
Wow.
Absolutely great job.
Very, very impressive. So anyway, thank you, Dave Bernstein and Saturday in the Park for another great year. And great, thanks for the weather too. You know, it turned out beautiful, so.
It was
Okay.
yeah.
And I apologize, I did forget two other things real quick. I went to the municipal, I
When
apologize,
you're
I'm
done,
sorry.
you're done now. We got a new rule here.
Yeah, I apologize.
You're gonna get the 3-minute rule real fast here.
How come I get the 3-minute rule all the time and you don't?
You guys are gonna get the ruler in about a minute.
He's
so
on
keep
it
going.
starting next week, so you better get it down
It's
better.
counted the minute I go over, a second over 3 minutes.
I'll go quick. So, I was up at the municipal band concert on Sunday.
Yes.
And that was a great time. I hadn't been able to go up this year. I've been wanting to. But I was stopped by numerous citizens, a few of them actually. And one in particular said, "We please, during council concerns, just thank the council and the city for their support of that because they thought it was an excellent event. I want to keep that going." So I just wanted to pass that along. The second thing.
And every
that
Sunday evening, I want
Every
to-
Sunday
every
evening,
Sunday evening,
7:30
they
PM.
thank, no, every Sunday evening, they thank Parks and Rec and the city council. And they ask
That's
everybody
awesome.
that attends to thank the council members
And there are
and
2
Parks and Rec. It's-
And there are 2
There was a
weeks
council
left.
that was gonna do away with their levy, that's why.
You don't wanna-
Bob,
Well,
just
there
take the
was.
compliment.
Well, it's like $32,000 a
glad
year
you-
to have that, and there
Yeah.
was a council that wanted to do away with it a while back.
Did anybody encourage you to go to that?
Wasn't us, was it?
Yeah, Dan Moore. And then he couldn't make it this last time, but no, it was an excellent event. I was
You
happy
never
to be there.
encouraged me to
The
do
only other
anything
thing,
like that.
well,
already
I'll
know
follow
the
up with an email.
Okay, there you
Watch
go.
your email, Bob.
Kinda hurts.
That's all I got then, I promise. Quick, get out of here.
The other unusual thing about Saturday in the Park, I think you're gonna bring this up. Siouxland Public Media.
Yeah.
They had a tent at Saturday in the Park. Siouxland
Really?
Public Media, yeah, which were,
Darn.
they were just fantastic this year. They were really good. What I wanted to share, this is kind of in lines with the police chief, but it's the ambulance service. I had occasion, unfortunately, to be close to a situation this weekend. And, you know, with the heat index the way it's been and as hot as it gets, people just get overheated. And this lady, I think that's what happened to her. But my point is, they called for the ambulance. The ambulance was timely there, and the people that came out of the ambulance, there were probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them, were just really, really responded well. Very professional, very caring, and it just was really, to see that firsthand, I want to compliment
I experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I did
yourself?
but
Yeah.
I didn't wanna call anyone.
About a month and a half ago, well, 3 months ago, at my office that day, I rode the ambulance up.
Oh, how was it?
Um,
It's a rough ride, but.
They did a great job.
Yeah, they really did do a good job, and I don't know how this lady's doing. I hope she's recovering nicely, but they responded timely and very professionally, so I just want to point that out.
I said there's normally 3 firemen that come, but I was so close to the station, 6 came because I think some of them thought I was checking out and they wanted to be there.
That's the pictures I got.
I don't think so. I move we adjourn.
Second.
I had my speech ready.
Scott,
Yeah. Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Lord.